Hello, and welcome back to episode 24 of Legend of the GLORIO Heroes. We might not have, all the exciting announcements or a slick press conference for all of you, like, a certain video games expo happening right now, but make no mistake, the galaxy is popping off in all sorts of exciting ways this week. I'm your host, G, and with me, as always, is my co-host, my ever-faithful attendee, the Ubisoft press conference of podcast hosts,
Ouch.
my cohort, Iro.
Holy shit. Wow.
Defend yourself.
I can't. I mean, I don't think I do as many song and dance numbers, but
Look, when I was writing up that bit on the fly, I was like, which video game? Like, look, I was originally say the Sony of press conferences.
Which press conference is always there, even though they have nothing to say.
Oh no, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that.
Nobody wants to play. It's Ubisoft.
Look, I had to think, okay, which company has always been at E3 every year? I was originally going to say Sony, but that doesn't work anymore because, of Sony. I could have said EA until a couple years ago, but...
What if they did announce a Legend of Galactic Heroes game at E3?
Oh my god, I don't even... A, that's probably more of a TGS thing, but B...
yes.
I don't even know how I would react. Like the version of the Legend of the Galactic Heroes video game that I imagine in my head is like the perfect merging of Stellaris
yeah.
and Crusader Kings 2 and the Total War games and Sins of a Solar Empire and it's like and I feel like even then it would not
Pokemon
quite
Memorial.
Right, yes, it would also have to have the politics and the dialogue and the
Towers of Iserlohn mode.
Yes, it would also have to have that aspect of it because because just the scope the show operates on, it's like you can't just be the top. It can't just be the top down space conquer simulator. It also has to be the societal dialogue simulator.
The Dynasty Warriors Shengo cuts down 100 dudes.
Yeah,
simulator.
exactly. It's like there's just. I don't know. And I'm trying to what studio could even pull off the Legend of Galactic Heroes game? And it's like my lazy answer, because it wouldn't fit, but because that's just who I am, is of course it would be Platinum Presents Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Okay.
And we'll just make good on that joke we made all those episodes back, where the final battle is just Angry Yang versus Reinhard powered up by his magic jar.
Indeed.
So,
yes, well,
fighting on top of the destroyed ruins of the Hyperion.
Based on these 3 episodes, I'm not sure how much longer Yang's gonna last, but
well,
yeah. Considering, yeah.
Yes, we might as well just get into it then.
Yeah, we're covering episode 67, Ragnarok Again, episode 68, 2 Facil, and episode 69, Iserlohn Fortress Recapture Operation.
Nice. As
I was hoping we'd get through this without that happening once, but
oh, sorry.
No.
We can edit that out in post.
No.
Nice enunciation there, Iro. All right, we'll just edit that out. Yes, it was a nice trio of episodes, one might say.
Sad and depressing trio episodes.
No, definitely not. Definitely not maybe the grimmest trio of episodes we have been treated to in recent memory. But there's a lot to get through, so we should just get into it.
So 67 opens up with just the Black Lancers are on their way, and a bunch of other troops are going, and Reinhard gets on a galaxy-wide broadcast to explain all the shit that's been going on the past 10 episodes.
Yes. I like that Reinhardt's speech basically amounts to Leninkampf fucked up. However, the FPA fucked up even more, which is maybe
Therefore, it's this incredibly like ridiculous situation where because it's politically expedient for Reinhard and the Empire, they are like full on, yeah, Yang Wen Li is great. We love that guy. He was wrong. Therefore, let's conquer the FPA.
right. It's very like it's very funny, but it's also a very true statement to the shape of the world in Legend of the Galactic Heroes, where like fuck ups in the Empire kind of happen on the individual scale. You know, your Braunschweigs, your Leninkovs, your Kempfs, like people fuck up, but they fuck up on an individual level. And because it's an autocratic like nation, those individual fuck ups still have gigantic consequences. But the FPA's fuck ups are like institutional. Like
Right.
like it fucks up on like a fundamental level as a government institution. But the probably the real takeaway from all of this is that one retired fleet admiral
Man.
Bucock is watching this broadcast, and
This old
Bucock,
man, his cane and sweater and
yes, like Bucock has fully accepted the old man retired life. Yes, sweater. He's got his favorite chair. You know, he's got a cane. Like Bucock, this is not the Bucock of season one. Like Bucock of season one was old, but he felt like he still felt powerful. He still projected an aura of authority. You know, he was an old soldier. The Bucock of season three is
he's an old man.
he is an old man. He has literally witnessed the rise and fall of nations, and he's done. He doesn't want to do this anymore. But
and so watching this thing, his wife puts down her knitting.
yeah, just kind of quietly gets up and walks away.
Room, brings him his uniform.
Yeah, like she just implicitly knows what Bucock is about to do. And it's so very sad. Like you look at Bucock and like you almost kind of see like, oh, Bucock is like maybe is like in a different world, like if they had switched places, or like if Yang had been born 50 years earlier,
right?
This is the life Yang would have had, you know? Like
yeah.
Maybe not the perfect life, maybe not the perfect career, but a life all the same, a life spent with your wife, with your loved ones, you know, like raising a new generation, you know, watching them grow. Like that is the life that maybe Yang Wen Li could have once had, and yet even then, like Bucock isn't actually truly allowed to enjoy his retirement, you know? Like he, you know, as we kind of are talking here, he basically takes up arms and, you know, returns to the FPA military, you know, to lead the defense, you know, against the Empire, you know, despite the fact that the Empire is throwing its entire military weight at the FPA, despite the fact that the FPA's fleet has already been dismantled, and if not dismantled, had already been completely decimated in the prior like 2-3 wars that occurred. Like, and yet, all the same, like, you know, Bucock is a soldier through and through, and we begin to see the logical through point of that personality and ideology.
I do like a kind of a running theme in this show. We've talked about this before, but it's like I feel like it's easy to say of a lot of fiction, like why doesn't this character just do the like perfectly logical thing in this situation? But what Galactic Heroes does, I think, is establish the personalities of the characters enough so that them doing a dumb thing, or I'm being mean by saying a dumb thing, but
no, I totally get what you mean.
Doing unideal things is treated as an inevitability of their personality and situation.
I mean, I would even go as far as say dumb, and I think it's more just like these are characters committing actions that fall in line with who they are and their personalities.
Right, exactly.
You know, even Reinhard, you know, vaunted Reinhard, the Golden Emperor, the genius tactician, he still does, and we'll get into this in episode 69, he still does dumb, irrational things, or again, maybe not even dumb or irrational, but he does things that are not entirely logical because that is who he is. And it gets into this idea that, like, in fiction, that, as you say, is maybe not that well explored, is that, like, people rarely do stupid things on purpose. Like even stupid people do things like, and I mean, this being a little bit cruel, but like even people who are like quote unquote objectively stupid are still following actions that to them follow a certain line of logic and reasoning. It's this idea that like, oh, people like just do things that are outright like, dumb for dumb's sake, is it's a more it's a more basic level of characterization that I'm glad
Sure.
Legend of the Galactic Heroes never really stoops to.
I mean, we're being pretty charitable to white supremacists here, so by saying they probably have a rationale behind
I mean, yes. Look.
I know.
Let me be straight here. I'm never saying that rationale is justified or that rationale is good, but people are generally following a certain rationale, regardless of how like actually irrational or stupid or ill-sighted or harmful those actual actions are.
Yeah.
And I think that what makes Legend of Galactic Heroes a good piece of fiction, because that's the thing, right? Like the more basic version of this is the like, both sides is, like just like the very basic level, just like, oh well, what if both sides are more similar than they think, or oh, what if both sides do bad stuff, right? But I think the reason why Legend of the Galactic Heroes can capably examine both the Empire and the FPA under its like highly critical lens is that it takes the time to rationalize and explain the actions of its various individuals.
Yep.
But we can't get into that discussion every podcast, so we should just keep moving. So
Reinhard's broadcast is also at the Yang station, their space station, and Reinhard says, "Hey, if Yang Wenli turns himself in to the Empire, he'll be treated well."
Yes, he will be treated with courtesy.
And everybody just stares at Yang Wenli for a minute.
Yes, and Yang Wenli, being the capable and charismatic leader he is, the first thing that comes out of his mouth is a joke. Which just immediately causes everybody other than Frederica to just shrug their shoulders and walk away. Which is like the funniest thing in the world, because after last episode's scene where we get to see Yang's inner mental workings, and we know that Yang is constantly thinking like this 24/7. So we know that even in a situation like this, Yang is actually very stressed out. He is very concerned about the situation. But once again, he just leads out with a joke because that it disarms the room. Everybody, he knows that if he starts to look worried, like it's gonna kill morale. So he's gotta be like, no, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And everybody's like, oh, Yang Wenli, you jokester.
Yeah.
But so with this development, Yang realizes that, well, this kind of moves up the timeline, and I think we're going to have to take Iserlohn after all.
Right, they can't go back to the Alliance now, and he's definitely not going to go Shackle Reinhard. So what can he do other than retake Iserlohn, hang out, like meet up with the Alpha Seal people?
Yes, in many ways, as Rubinsky, said so many episodes ago, the thread has been tightened for Yang Wenli, just a little bit more once again.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, we go over to the Empire.
Well, yeah, Phezzan, the capital of the Empire.
Yes, Phezzan.
Which is weird. It's like a little weird to me.
Still a weird thing to compartmentalize, but yes, over in Phezzan.
Reinhard's suffering from a low biorhythm.
Yes. As they put it, yes, low biorhythms.
Which is just a thing to say.
He's just not feeling it today. He's not at 100%. But that does not preclude the need for statecraft.
Indeed.
And he's taking care. He's hitting the books as is usual when
right. Hilda, they basically say, the narrator basically says that like he's busy solving numerous tasks, and but also there's a lot of stuff, and he delegates a lot of it to Hilda because she's good at her job.
Indeed. And another thing Hilda is good at is bringing up unwelcome trends to Reinhard's notice. So
Right.
I kind of like this bit here because Hilda basically tells Reinhard that there is a kind of a worrying trend in the Empire a power hierarchy that's been happening lately. And what has been happening is that people have begun to invoke Reinhard's name as a political and social tool
Right.
to give their words weight and legitimacy. And I like this.
Like one Heydrich Lang did that one time.
Yeah, exactly. And more specifically, you know, I mean, this has, of course, happened across many dictatorships, but like one highly specific one from the 1940s. And what I'm speaking of course, is the Third Reich. I will not get too heavy into the historical tangent here, but basically what is happening in Reinhardt's empire is basically what happened in Hitler's, is that people would invoke Hitler's name in arguments because
the cult of personality.
The cult of personality, because invoking Hitler's name was the end-all be-all of an argument. You know, basically, well, you know, I'm doing this because of Hitler. So if you oppose it, you know, you're actually opposing Hitler. Are you opposing Hitler? And like the problem with this kind of thinking is that naturally it leads to a lot of cronyism, right? It leads to a lot of like, you know, like, oh, I am doing this action not because I think it's the right action, but because I think it will make so-and-so at the top the happiest.
Right.
And even worse than that, it leads to, you know, it leads to people invoking the name even for causes that are directly contrary to that leader because, you know, it is being used as political leverage. And I'm kind of glad that they bring this up. And I'm glad they bring up that this is becoming a common thing across all ranks of the Empire.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes, you know, again, this is not being charitable towards Hitler, this is being charitable towards Reinhard. But, like, regardless of the quality of the ruler itself, like, this is always a worrying trend for any, like, organization. Because what it does is it immediately, like, curtails any sort of, like, internal, any kind of internal
discussion or argument.
Yes, that is the right word. Like, because if all of a sudden you're saying we do X, Y, and Z, you know, Heil Hitler, Heil Reinhard, like,
who's gonna say otherwise?
Yes, how can anyone say otherwise? And so I'm glad Hilda brings this up, and I'm glad that, you know, I'm glad that it is at least addressed. You know, like, I feel like it is a very Reinhard like reaction that is like, why are you bringing up such a petty thing, like, to me? Because, like, to Reinhard, of course, to Reinhard in his fucking, you know, pseudo galaxy brain state is like, why would anyone do that? That's so silly. That's so irrational. Why would anybody ever invoke my name just to win an argument? What kind of idiot does that? But, like, sorry, like, that's that's governance, that's politics, like. And so, like, he's like,
he does take Hilda's suggestion to basically, like, immediately, like, decree that this is dumb as fuck,
right?
So doing it.
So I'm glad that, like, but so I think there's a very interesting, like, element here at play of, like, Reinhard being like, this is so stupid, but also, like, you're right, I cannot allow this to, like, fester.
Yeah,
it very much gets into the idea of, like, especially in such a top-down heavy government structure such as Reinhardt's, like, these are the things that you hope you never have to worry about, that you never have to deal with. But, like, this is exactly why even in an autocracy, like, you know, you need people like Hilda, you need, like, people like Silverburst, you need these, like, dozens or hundreds of individuals still maintaining things, because, like, otherwise this stuff will just always escape your notice because it is so ground level. Like, it's just a thing that you, like, it's just, let's be real, it's a thing that would never ever, like, get Reinhardt's notice, because no empire like general or politician would ever speak in the way Hilda's talking about to Reinhardt's face, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it is a thing that has to be brought to his attention by somebody else. But
yeah, and Hilda also brings up her plan to for the upcoming expedition to Lance territory.
Yes.
Basically, her plan of how we can take the Alliance within 2 weeks, no casual, like no major hostilities, which is basically make them fight each other.
Yes, she's basically saying we should deflect the ire of the Alliance citizens towards the FPA. Basically, like, collapse the FPA's already rapidly crumbling legitimacy. And as a result, this also has the side effect of giving Yang some leeway. And the idea behind this is that a Yang with a little bit of leeway is actually a little easier to deal with than a cornered Yang. Like, a cornered Yang Wenli is maybe the most dangerous animal in the animal kingdom. Like, a cornered Yang Wenli will fight and scrap and blow up all sorts of transports and drag all sorts of asteroids into your ass.
Basically, leave him in a position where we can predict what will happen next.
Yes. But yeah, and it how do I put this? I guess it is interesting because like materially, like, how the fuck could Yang win? Of course Yang can't win, right? Like of course the rational thing for Yang to do would be to turn himself in. So let's give him the leeway to do that. But like, there's also this.
She knows that he wouldn't like. They all know that Yang would not
but
do
also
that.
Yes, there's that unspoken like statement in the room that also Yang would never do that. But at the end of the day, the conversation finally ends with kind of an interesting bit where Hilda kind of ponders her place in Reinhard's life. Because like we didn't mention it real quick, but add what +1 to the if only Kirky eyes were here count, because that is an aspect of this conversation is like, would I even be having this conversation with Reinhard if Kirky eyes were here? Like,
right.
Wouldn't this all be Kirky eyes' job? Like, wouldn't it be Kirky eyes who would advertise caution and moderation and like and clemency? But like, he's not, and so it kind of falls on me to do that. But am I just that to Reinhard, or am I potentially something more to him? I guess. Yeah. And I think we at least have our assumptions about
right
about Reinhard, where Reinhard and Hilda's
still
relationship is going. Show. But it's kind of interesting. We are like almost 70 episodes in. Like fucking even Yang Wenli got married before Reinhard. Like, come on, Reinhard, you are really
pick up the pace.
You gotta get your shit together, man.
He also. This isn't actually important, but he's got a like bell on his desk, the Emil von Seklo bell.
Yes, the Emil bell. Yes,
it's like rings it, and Emil runs in to.
It's very good. But yeah. So we return back to Bucock, kind of.
Right, Bucock shows up at Central Command, and
yes,
soon Sol's Curator, or whatever that guy's name was,
whatever that dude's name is
like, oh man, Mr. Bucock, let me help you, sir.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's really sad to watch because like the scene like makes sure to emphasize like just like how weak and old and frail Bucock is.
Right.
Like this is not the Bucock that was like, this is not the Bucock that shouted Andrew Fork into a coma. This is a much older Bucock, like this is a Bucock that has in many ways lost the fire that made him the soldier he was, but in spite of that he must still persist, because if he won't, nobody else will.
Yeah, basically says I've been paid, unlike Yang, I've been working for the Alliance for 50 years and I can't stop now.
Yeah. And so Bucock basically starts to plan a military campaign of no return.
Yeah.
Basically saying outright, this is an expedition I don't expect many of us to return from. So he says tells
nobody under 30 is allowed.
Yes, no one under 30. He tells Sol that I am ordering you to go join Yang Wenli. You are going to take this or no, this is not the part where they bring up the letter, is it? There's
no, that's later, a bit later.
Does it tell Sol to bring something to Yang? I forget.
Just like tell him to not get mad over this. Basically, like,
I guess, sure.
don't try to take revenge for me.
Yes. And
Yeah.
additionally, we also have Chung Yu Chan shows up once more.
Dude walks in, says, I'm over 30. Guess I'm going with you.
Yeah, kind of Chung decides to sign his fate with Bucock, which is such a damn shame because I really like, I think we were all unsure of what to make of Chung at the start, but like I feel like I have really grown to like him as a character.
Mm-hmm.
Like in many ways, I feel he is kind of this weird like hybridization of like Yang and the like traditional FPA military man.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a man who like clearly like Yang Wenli thinks deeply about the structures of power and what they represent, but also like, unlike Yang Wenli, is still owes who he is to an institution, even if it is a broken one. Like this is the Chung Yu Chan said, like if you order me to, I will fight Yang Wenli. Like that is
but it would kind of a bad idea.
Yes.
Okay, here's what the thing Bucock tells Soul to take to Yang. It's like in my house I have a secret box.
Oh right, yes.
There's 2 bottles of really good brandy. Take one of them to Yang.
Oh, good. Yes, that is what it was. But
yep.
Yeah.
And Empire runs down like their assignments for this offensive, including a bunch of dudes we don't know who are probably not important.
If those people matter, they will show up later.
Right.
Like that is the thing,
I think. Yeah.
I think that's the thing we have established with this show is like if at this point some of you are getting annoyed at us because we have grown increasingly worse at remembering the names of people, just understand that like look, if they are truly important, we have enough confidence that this show will remind us who they are. If they are not that important, then the show will not do much with them anyway. So.
Yep.
But yes, so all of that has been set up. But the most important aspect of this is that Oberstein has been left in charge of Phezzan in Reinhard's absence, because Reinhard, being who he is, insists on leading the charge in this military campaign. As he said, the throne of the Empire is where
my flagship.
Go. Yes. So, surely nothing could possibly go wrong with Oberstein running the show while Reinhard isn't around. Indeed. Surely nothing horrible will happen. But
and we get a montage of the FPA falling apart.
Yes.
And
yes.
Like people, like the government can't decide whether to fight to the end or like unconditionally surrender or evacuate the citizens or what.
Yeah.
Got looting in the streets. People running to the spaceport getting shot by cops.
Yeah, it is bad for the FPA right now. Just
and Lobello's continuing descent into madness.
Yes.
He's like, it's all Yang Wenli's fault for privatizing the military.
Lobello has totally fucking lost it. Dude has just like completely cracked under the strain of leadership. It's just it's a sad way to go for a guy who was introduced as being, one of the good ones.
Yeah.
But I guess it just kind of goes to show, like, the ways that power can just not just change and corrupt, but completely destroy a person.
Mm-hmm. And so a few ships approach the Black Lancers, Bittenfield's fleet.
Yes.
And Bittenfield's like, oh, it's just like 10 ships. They want to negotiate. Fuck that. Send them to Mittermeier. I don't give a shit.
Like, fucking Bittenfield is like, negotiation? What's that? Is that a thing you can eat? Like,
negotiation for withdrawal? What? I don't understand.
Right. Like, just Bittenfield continuing to just be the fucking... the very good but very stupid person he is. So yes, he passes him off to Mittermeier, and unlike Bittenfield, Mittermeier actually like feels some degree of obligation and accountability for his leadership position.
Yeah.
So like Mittermeier's like, all right, bring them in, let's talk.
Yep.
And I like that Mittermeier immediately catches on to Binfield's bullshit, where he's like, "Oh, Binfield passed them off to me to slow me down."
Right.
Like,
so he can get more glory.
yeah. And basically, we have one William Odets. I forget if we had met Odets before.
I don't think we have. It's possible.
But he is an FPA politician, and basically, he's trying to negotiate with Mittermeier about withdrawing their forces. He's talking about, look, like, according to the treaty, like you can't do this. Like, we agreed to this. Like, yes, like has the FBA like done some things that have like definitely like fallen askew, but like by the word of the treaty, you don't have the right to do this. And like, I think this is a good point that he brings up, because remember in the prior episode, Reinhard's original hesitation to this whole thing was because that like he's not like like he's not technically breaking the treaty, but like by the letter of the law, but by the heart by the heart and intent of it, he is setting an extremely poor precedent to do this. Because like, again, this is the contrast between him and Yang Wenli. Yang Wenli would never do this, because Yang would never, because even if it took 200 years for somebody to act on Yang's poor precedent, it would haunt Yang to the end of his days. Like, that somebody would use his actions to justify something even worse. Whereas Reinhard doesn't even begin to consider that, oh, what happens in 50, 100 years, a ruler way worse than me like invokes my name and invokes what I'm doing now to do some horrible act. He doesn't even consider it, because like,
yeah,
it's what they say. Reinhard does not consider the shape of the universe. Reinhard does not believe in a universal truth. Reinhard makes the universal truth with his own two hands.
Yeah.
And so, again, I don't necessarily like Odets, but I do like the fact that he is at least trying to bring up, look, by the letter of the law, like, you people cannot do this. And, there's a lot of back and forth. You get some real hot-headed, it's good to see that the Empire still has a surplus of hot-headed dumbass officers.
Yeah.
Who eventually leads to maybe one of the best fucking Reinhard roasts I have ever seen in my life. Where where they're basically talking about like
how you gonna deal with Yang Wenli?
Right. Like yes.
Well, Alliance. Even if you had 10 times the number of fleet like ships Yang has, you wouldn't be able to defeat him.
Right, which leads to Odets saying, well, Yang didn't have 10 times the amount of ships, and even Reinhard couldn't beat him, so,
Reinhard had 100 times that of Yang and still couldn't do it.
Right. Just fucking, like, again, I'm not sure how I feel about Odets as a whole, but man, just fucking Reinhard got roasted. Just
everyone freaks out. One of the dudes is just gonna shoot Odets.
Straight up pulls a gun on him. Like, just, oh my god, you can just tell that every fucking person, every single Empire goon in that room could fucking feel the heat on that one. It was so good.
Mittermeier has to be like, okay, everybody chill out.
Yes.
Basically says the difference between us and the Alliance is that, like, nobody here, or like everybody here is easily willing to shoot you for going against the Kaiser, but nobody in the Alliance has such conviction, but Yang Wenli's forces do.
Right.
And so that's why we don't really care about trampling the Alliance, because you've repeatedly showed you have no spine, whereas Yang Wenli's forces like have continuously proven themselves.
Yes. But at the end of the day, Mittermeier releases Odets and says, like,
if you really want to take this up, go talk to the Kaiser.
Yes, with, of course, the implicit, like, look, if you couldn't even convince Mittermeier, you don't stand a chance in hell of convincing, Reinhard.
Yeah.
But yeah, and with that kind of ends episode 67.
Yeah.
We come back on episode 68, where we are back on Odin.
Yeah, Julian and Mashengo, the Julian squad was still on Odin when Reinhard
their tour.
When Reinhard made his speech, and but oh no! Also, they were robbed. Their hotel was robbed,
which I find just like a very I'm a little sad. I'm a little sad. And the reason I'm a little sad is because, like, I feel like it truly speaks to how gargantuan of a story that Legend of the Galactic Heroes is, that this subplot had to be turned into, like, a 4-minute thing.
Like, right, like a 2-minute montage.
Because I feel like now
could have gone for a whole like episode or two of
I feel like
Go Poplan have to detective work.
To find their stolen data disk,
right? Because we can't go to the Empire cops.
Yeah, and like I feel like because of the scale of this show, we can no longer spend that kind of time on these moments. But I feel like in season 1, this kind of plot line would have been a whole episode.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, because you think about like some of the season 1 episodes, especially at the Empire, where we have entire episodes of season 1 that are just like Reinhard getting up to some Empire bullshit. You know, like I feel like it is a shame.
Wonder if this is something that was in like a Gaiden or something.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is why we're probably gonna have to watch, the Gaiden series afterwards. You know, everybody tune into Legend of the GLORIO Heroes Gaiden.
Don't announce anything yet.
A podcast feed near you. Because, like, again, I say this because, like, here's the thing: I recognize that plot-wise, this is not that important. Like, in the grander scheme of what this show is, it is not that important beyond Julian needs to get the disc back, right? Like, basically the only takeaway we get from this plot line is that Boris Konev explains that as a result of Reinhard's ascendancy, a lot of the old, like, corrupt elements of the, like, Empire, like, hierarchy were, like, booted out. But, like, as a result, a lot of those elements kind of turn to crime or, like, black market, like, dealings. And that,
Phezzan knows all about the black market.
Right. If there's anything a Phezzan knows about, it's dealing in the black market. But I guess it's the thing of, like, so, like, I guess that's really the only takeaway from this plot line, which is a shame because, like,
kind of wanted to see Julian Shengo Poplan dicking around.
Yeah, because that would just be fun to me. Like, because, like, I think we all joked about, man, we can't wait for our, like, fucking Julian and Mashengo, like, buddy cop duo adventures on Phezzan, and then we never got that. And I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll get some of that on Odin, but we don't really get it on Odin either. And it's like, I understand for the sake of time, they can't really afford to spend time on, like, those kind of subplots anymore, but I still do think it's a little unfortunate.
Yeah, we also get a brief aside about Admiral Eisenach.
Yes, von Eisenach,
which is just this silly aside because he's called the Silent Admiral because he's, like, a man of few words, but he's very diligent or whatever. And
yes, and he commands his troops entirely through snapping and nods. And, like, if he snaps once, you bring him tea. If he snaps twice, you bring him brandy. Don't ever fuck it up.
Right? Yeah. And so it's like there's this silly sequence where he snaps once, and then snaps twice, and snapping and so his attendant or whatever got confused or something, and interpreted snapping twice as snapping once, twice. And since, like, and from then on, Eisenach like settled for his 1 cup of coffee and then 2 cups of coffee.
Yes, like, I thought that was. I don't quite understand the purpose of this subplot, like the scene, because, like, this character doesn't really, like. I thought that character was going to show up later in the episode, but, like, I guess I was just a little confused by it, like, structurally. Like, why did that scene show up here of all places? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't quite get, like, what this. Again, maybe von Eisenach comes back later, and, like, is more. But I guess I guess I just didn't quite understand, like, what this was, like, a statement on, or, like, if this was meant to be like a
right.
Again, I don't mean to purpose fiction, with this level of scrutiny, but this is Legend of the Galactic Heroes we're talking about. So, like, I just didn't quite understand why this scene was here.
Okay, what about the scene where Poplan is sleeping with a married woman?
Now, that scene makes a whole lot more sense.
Has to fucking bail out the window as as her husband gets home and starts shooting at him.
Yes. That said, I said that maybe this episode didn't have a lot of dumbass shit. I guess it does have some
Poplan, you
dumbass
son
shit.
of a bitch.
Because yes, we have Poplan, ever the paramour. Which, look, I think, like I said before, right? Like Poplan has a weirdly high batting average. I guess like we assume that a guy like him would be failing all the time, but
Sure,
apparently,
again, like you're sure he doesn't just have a really low average, but just shoots 1,000 times.
I mean, look. Either way, if look. If you're batting 40 out of 100 or 200 out of 1,000, at the end of the day, which is actually the preferable, number? So,
Right.
But yes. So they,
as Mashengo says, humans cannot go against their fate.
Yes. But
and
long story short, they
decide to go meet up with Yang.
Yes. Poplan gets back in one piece. They get the data disk back. And, they initially talk about, well, we don't know where he is right now, but Julian knows Yang well enough to know exactly, where Yang is planning to go.
Also, the title of the episode is To El Facil, so...
Yes. So they decide to set sail for El Facil to rendezvous with Yang.
Yep, and Chung, back on the Heinesen, Chung pulls together a bunch of people in a room. The people who are indispensable for his true objective, which is Edwin Fisher, Murai, and Patrushev.
Yes, we're getting the old B team back together.
Yes. He says it's very important that you take this document to Yang Winli. This document that is a legal transfer of 5,000 ships and all of the crew.
Yes, that we have to legally write this document to give a legal precedent to us transferring this fleet to Yang Wenli.
Right, and so, but even Murai is like, that seems a little much, isn't it?
And then Chung, with the most fucking deadpan face in the world, is like, "You're right. This is a joke.
Your jokes are as stale as your sandwiches, Chung."
It's just the most fucking deadpan fucking the driest joke I have maybe ever seen in this show. Chung has assembled these men for the very important task of delivering 5,000 ships to Yang Wenli, but still decided, I'm gonna get in a zinger. I'm gonna write up this legal document.
I thought it was funny. I don't know.
Oh, Chung, Chung, you will be missed.
Yeah, Murai says, it's a really good idea to split off so many forces. Won't we absolutely 100% lose the Imperial fleet with this? And Chung's like, well, we were going to lose anyway. So go to Yang.
Yeah, basically, look, 10,000 ships, 5,000 ships, it doesn't matter what Bucock's got. We're all fucked. So we're going to send enough off to Yang to hopefully bolster his forces and leave enough here to, put up a token resistance, or as they say, a bit of useless resistance.
Yeah.
And speaking of useless resistances, we kind of have a bit here where Bucock's just they're really pouring it on with this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Bucock is reminiscing about his wife.
Get a full-on montage of, happy times at the Bucock household.
Yeah, and it's just in case you thought that Bucock had a chance of survival this season, they are extra reminding you, no, Bucock is super fucked.
And they basically say that, as we've been saying repeatedly, that Yang Wenli has many shortcomings, but nobody can criticize him for truly 100% believing that, in democracy.
Yeah. They talk about he's not just a man who says this; he is a man who commits this in his actions. It's a thing we say all the time. Yang truly believes in democracy, and Yang truly believes. We'll get into this a bit with 69. I think that it's a thing that they keep saying, and it's a thing that I've begun. I think that I've kind of come to believe as well, is a bad democracy is still one worth fighting for, because a bad democracy can one day become a good democracy. whereas a bad autocracy is almost doomed to be a bad autocracy in perpetuity. Like because it possesses no capability for internal reform, or no systemized capacity for internal reform.
And then they go on to say that basically Yang would never be defeated by Reinhard, but he will be defeated by his own ideals.
Yes, kind of
He
really
should have shot Reinhard when he had the chance.
Yes. Even Bucock is like, Yang should have taken the shot.
And Bucock always thought he should take the shot.
Yes. I mean, it is that push and pull between idealism and cynicism. Like, again, like, I think, like, was Yang right to worry about the precedent he sets of a military commander disobeying orders in the name of a greater good? Like, of course, that is something to worry about. Of course, that is a precedent to fear. But also, how much suffering has been guaranteed by the survival of Reinhard? Like,
yeah.
And it's very much that kind of long-term versus short-term thing. And should we sometimes perhaps criticize Yang for his very long-term, like, view of the universe? But yeah, basically just yes, as Bucock says here, hell, as Rubinsky has said, like, Yang is a man who will be. There is no fucking earthly force on the planet that can kill Yang but Yang himself. And so the smartest thing to do, as Rubinsky said all those episodes ago, is to just continuously push the situation further and further until Yang is forced to make that action, to take that option.
Yeah. Cut to the flagship of the Yang irregular fleet, the Ulysses, where Kazuna just shows up and says, "Hey, we're broke."
Yes, just like, hey, look, man, like, even an irregular splinter fleet still needs to feed itself. And Kazunu suggests that they borrow from former Phezzani merchants to keep Yang's fleet running.
Yeah, because basically under the premise that eventually the Empire will, like, dismantle them, but if we defeat the Empire, we're allowed to keep doing your thing.
Yes, basically, kind of make a bet on, like, basically convince the Phezzani merchants that, like, it is worth more to bet on Yang Wen Li than to acquiesce to the Empire. Yeah. Which kind of leads to Yang deciding that, well, what better bargaining chip than taking Iserlohn? Yep. Like, what better way to convince the Phezzani merchants to bet on him than to, to do what Miracle Yang does best, basically.
Yeah, and Odets reaches Odin or Phezzan.
Right. See, it's hard. I know. But yes, he arrives at Phezzan, but never gets to be with Reinhard.
Reinhard just says, like, don't bother me with this dumb shit.
Right. And but however, Odets meets with somebody else who is on Phezzan.
Rubinsky returns.
Yes, Rubinsky. A piece that is still in play this whole time. Rubinsky returns, and he speaks with Odets, and he's like, "Look, you have the authority to help me with something, and what you can help me with is spreading a certain rumor.
Mm-hmm.
And if we spread this rumor, it's going to destabilize the Empire." And of course, they ask, "Well, is it even true?" And it's like, "Does it matter if it's true as long as the desired effect is achieved?" And that's kind of they kind of just leave it at that. But very interesting. I'm very curious because, like, we've said it time and time again, Rubinsky does not have the traditional moduses of power. He does not have a fleet, he does not have soldiers. He might not even have that much money at this point, like Rubinsky is an interesting character, and I've always been curious about what that man could potentially do with the assets he does have. And I hope we get to kind of see that come into play here.
Yeah.
I wanted to make it. I want to make it very apparent. I still think Rubinsky's a fucking snake, but he's a very interesting snake. And I feel like we have missed his conniving presence in the last couple of seasons.
Some
But
scene
we move
on
on
in
from
Bar
there.
Cool, the one Phezzan bar where
Yes,
people are like, "We're Phezzan, it's time to make us some profit off this situation."
yes. Which is just a reminder that if Azani are, if nothing else, opportunistic.
Yep, and we get a quick battle in the
Loisan?
Plana Losiana, where
Yeah.
which is like a manufacturing plant for all of the Alliance,
Yes.
where basically amounts to we're gonna get fucked by the Empire. Send everything you can to Yang Wen Li.
Yes. I kind of like this bit. You know, I kind of want to. I prefer. I want to imagine that this is kind of just indicative. Like, I think
Right,
this scene is
this
meant to
is meant to
represent,
be
like,
the entire offensive in microcosm, right?
yes, of like, if not, if not like freaking every manufacturing plant is sending stuff to Yang, but more kind of speaks to this idea that like even the FPA, like, rank and file, who have realized and accepted the situation, are like, there is only one man left in this galaxy who can save us,
Mm-hmm.
and that is Yang Wen Li. We're going all in with our chips. Like, we're betting double or nothing on Yang Wen Li because, like, that's all we have left.
Yep,
And
so Yang arrives on Alpha Seal.
Yeah, and we kind of get this. We get we get good old Yang dealing with politicians again. Fucking Yang continues to get photographed shaking hands with politicians.
Good old
And,
spinning newspaper.
yes, yeah, and not loving it. It's very good. It's so good. Just Yang. We get even beyond the politicians part. Yang admits that, like, he doesn't really love the plan of going to Alpha Seal because, like, it just, while I'm sure, I think he appreciates their ideology. He feels that, like, Alpha Seal might actually in some ways be a hindrance than a help in some regards. But he does need the manpower and equipment. We have a great bit here where Yang continues to be horrible at giving speeches.
Right. It's pretty clear that the Alpha Seal people basically just want Yang to lend themselves legitimacy.
Yeah,
So.
it's pretty obvious, like, from the get go, that, like, maybe these guys believe in democracy, but what they really believe in is the prestige that Yang Wen Li's support will give them.
Yeah.
We have a good bit here where the Alpha Seal politician has already started talking about, well, we got to name our government something, right? How does the FPA legitimate government sound? And Yang is just like, Yang is having none of
like,
this.
Are you kidding me?
Yang just straight up does not give a fuck. It kind of maybe speaks to one of Yang's weaknesses, where he just does not understand how to play the politics game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he doesn't even understand why they're having this conversation.
Dusty basically has to bail him out.
And I kind of appreciate, oh, right, maybe, I think that's kind of what Dusty is, right? Like, beyond just being a fleet admiral, like, what Dusty's real skill is, like, being able to translate Yang's ideologies and, like, beliefs into a more everyman, packaging,
Sure.
Like Yang Wen Li is the dude staring off into the stars, talking about, like, gosh, is there such a thing as universal truth? And Dusty's the one who's like, let me re-explain what Yang was trying to say. What he meant to say was,
yep.
And in that regard, Dusty helps mitigate the situation a bit. But at the end of the day,
so now the Yang Irregulars are the Alpha Seal Revolutionary Reserve.
Yes, and Yang begins assembling the crew that will take back Iserlohn.
Indeed. And that wraps up 68.
Yeah, and we just kind of roll right into 69, where kind of open up on a little bit of fighting. We see that the Black Lancers are kind of doing what the Black Lancers do best,
smashing through things.
Yes, bust shit up. And we get a little bit about a one Commodore Beaufort's valiant guerrilla tactics that have successfully cut off the Black Lancers supply line, but are destroyed in the process. But kind of just speaking to the microcosm thing of, like, this is all the FBA can really do at this point, just kind of
slow them down a little bit.
Slow them down, yes. Meanwhile,
and they found out, they confirmed from captured from POWs that
yes,
that Mercat is in fact alive, and hang out with Yang Wen-li, which like. Yeah, they've assumed for a while that Mercatz was
Yeah.
dead. So.
They introduced 3 new admirals.
Oh boy.
I don't think they matter. I'm just going to say their names. They introduced Admiral Brauhitz, Sauken, and Altringen.
I think they've been around for a long time, actually.
Well, then I guess this is the first time they've said something relevant enough for me to remember. Basically, these 3 guys are severely underestimating Yang Wen-li. They're like,
right.
They're just like, whatever, let's just bust him up, like it'll be easy. And it's like, conveniently forgetting that fucking your god and king Reinhard von Lohengram himself had trouble doing that.
Yeah.
So
privately, Hilda basically has to tell Reinhard it's fine because like Yang Wen-li is a great admiral, but also he doesn't have any political.
Right. Hilda is basically trying to desperately convince Reinhard that he does not need to fight Yang.
Right.
Like, there is a very explicit limit on Yang's political power. Like, the thing that Yang doesn't have that Reinhard does is that Reinhard has political clout. Reinhard doesn't just have to win fights. He can enact like large societal and governing changes to the world. And that is something Yang cannot do, not just because of the power and material he has, but also because of intrinsically who he is as a person.
Yeah.
And as a result, like, Hilda basically argues that it is way easier. I mean, Hilda is basically arguing the same thing she did during Operation Ragnarok 1, that it is easier to destroy the Alliance than it is to destroy Yang.
Yep.
Like,
he's too powerful.
Right, like, she is begging Reinhard, like, please. Like, I mean, maybe there's a bit of subtext here where Hilda's like, please, I don't want you to die. Like, if you try to fight Yang again, like, you might actually die in the process. Like, it is so much easier.
She's known that the whole time. Hilda's the smartest person in this show.
I mean, Hilda is not wrong. Hilda continues to be one of the smartest people in this whole goddamn show, where she's like, I'm not trying to insult you, Reinhard. Like, everybody knows you're a great king and a great ruler. Like, you don't have to fight Yang Wen-li. This can be the one thing.
You will, even if you don't fight Yang Wen-li, you will gain the universe.
Right, like, the universe.
He can't, like, if you play this smart, he won't be able to stop you no matter what.
Right, destroy the Alliance, like, destroy all of his allies. Yang will be forced to bend the knee. Like, you don't have to fight him directly. You will lose so much more if you fight him directly.
Of course, Reinhard's just like, well, Yang Wen-li will understand that I won the universe, but all of his friends will say that I didn't.
Right, yeah, Reinhard fucking. This is the fucking, like, a brief return of Bratty Reinhard, where Reinhard is literally like that fucking kid on the schoolyard who, like, even if his basketball team can beat Yang's basketball team, like, the fact that he did not dunk as often as Yang, like, makes him bad.
He needs to score more than Yang Wen-li.
Right. Like Reinhard's like, it's so. I mean, it's literally like Reinhard's like, yeah, well, Yang might accept a won, but his friends won't. They'll make fun of me.
They'll keep saying that Yang Wen-li scored more than me, even though my team won. I cannot abide this.
It's just like, oh, Reinhard, please. But yes, so because of this extremely petty reasoning, Reinhard continues with his plan to personally destroy Yang Wen-li by his own hand.
Yep. Meanwhile, Dusty is scoping out a hot lady.
Yeah.
On Alpha Seal.
At an Alpha Seal, like, starport.
Yep.
Where Julian runs into Dusty. Yeah. Kind of meet up. And there's a bit before that, there's a section here where, like, I'm glad you brought this up, because I was like, there's supposed to be more to this. There's got to be something more to this, right? Surely. Maybe not, but there was, like, a weirdly well-drawn, well-designed lady who walked past this scene that I was like, oh, this lady is, like, I think anybody who, like, watches anime or, like, consumes any kind of media knows, like, characters are sometimes drawn a certain way to communicate to you, oh, this character is important, Like, the equivalent is when you play the tactics games, the tactic game Fire Emblem. When you look at a character's portrait on the tactical map, you kind of can implicitly tell, oh, that is the character I can recruit, and that is the faceless mook I cut down by the dozens. Like there's an implicit way in which these characters are designed that they're meant to communicate that. And there was a lady in this scene that I think you and I were both like, "Who is this lady? There's got to be more to this, right?" But I think we might just have to accept that the whole point of that scene was just a pretty lady for Dusty's eyes to follow to end up on Julian.
Yep.
So yes, they finally meet up, and yes, at the same time, Poplan is working his magic on a couple of ladies.
Yeah.
Seems to have actually been going pretty well too until he's called away, which again I guess calls into question like what is Poplan saying to these women that is working so well apparently. But
he gives this whole fucking spiel about how half of the human race is ladies, and half of those are my type, and half of that are hot enough for me to go after. And so there's still billions of women.
Yes. As he says, there are still 5 billion women worthy of my romance.
Chill out,
and Dusty. It does just mean a little bit of a dig here, where he's like, I mean, 5 billion women, but that's because you have low standards and go after women of poor character, and Poplan's like, don't worry, I'll leave all the women of good character to you, Dusty. It was like Poplan, you fucking dirtbag. Look, man, Poplan is a man of many faces. He is a dirtbag. He's a paramour. He is a hotshot starfighter pilot, and once again. An expert in recognizing neurotoxins.
Yeah, that did happen.
Just a man of many talents.
And he's also like, man, the names for our force suck. It should be the lady killer Olivier Poplan and his foils.
Yes, which to
Machenko is like, we have women too.
It's like, you're right. Then the Olivier Poplan fan club. Look, I love these moments. Because like the Empire never gets to have these moments,
right? Very rarely.
The closest you get is like whenever Mittermeier and Roenthal are talking.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everybody in the Empire is so buttoned up. You only really get these kind of like bits with the FPA. But so they make it to
and Dusty spills the beans about Karin.
Yes. Dusty finally tells Julian about Karin and her true identity, and you have this great fucking bit where just Julian is totally stone faced, just like
zoom in on his face. He's just flat expression.
He's like, "Is this a joke?" Like, it's like, nope, I'm telling the truth. Like, that woman is Shenkov's daughter.
Yep. But Julian's also like, oh, but she doesn't like me.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, I feel like every time Karin and Julian have met, Karin has met Julian under the worst possible circumstances.
Right. Who's this weirdo wearing a lavender hoodie?
Right, like this guy, Julian showing up wearing the fucking, like, prep outfit, like, the fucking, like, lavender, like sweatshirt tied around his fucking shoulders, like... It's almost like a sitcom where like Karin just keeps running into Julian at his like absolute worst, most inopportune moments.
And not when he's like drop kicking Earth Cult fools.
Yeah, like not when Julian is like literally the coolest, best motherfucker in the room. but yeah. So more importantly, it's felt like such a long time.
Yeah, I forgot to investigate exactly how long.
Yes, Julian and Yang Wen-li finally reunite for the first time in at least feels like dozens of episodes, and
at least like since the beginning of the season.
Like, yeah, and it's kind of a good bit here where like they kind of speak to this idea of like Julian's grown up. He's about Yang's height now. Like he's a man. And. It is these little heartwarming moments that we really kind of learn to cherish as the universe of Legend of the Galactic Heroes grows darker with every episode.
Indeed.
Speaking of darker, the narrator at this point,
Right.
the narrator basically spells
Right.
out
As
Yang's,
they're going over the plot to
yeah,
recapture Iserlohn.
they spell out Yang's last and fatal mistake.
It's
And
like,
that is,
Young committed a miscalculation in this
yes,
situation.
and
And
that was
everyone
being
just goes, oh god, no.
its greatest and last miscalculation. And I was just like, why would you phrase it like that?
Yeah, he basically say Yang underestimated the Alliance fleet. He didn't think Bucock and Chung would be able to put up any resistance at all.
Right,
And
so he basically formulated
also,
his plan
yeah,
around having no Alliance interference. And additionally, I think you were going to say next, Iro?
yeah, and also that he didn't immediately read the Earth cult data because he was busy planning Iserlohn.
Yes. And that, the narrator states that these are two reasonable assumptions for Young to have made,
Mm-hmm.
considering the context of the situation he was in. He could not have been expected to think that, the alliance that had continuously betrayed him and failed him at every turn would somehow find the grit to muster one last army. And that because he was busy with Iserlohn, it is reasonable to expect that he did not have time to check the Earth Cult data disk.
But that future historians would point out that for the first time, Yang and Lee was entering a battle with no possibility of victory. It's like, come
Yes.
on, don't say that.
Yes, that because of these two actions,
his defeat was assured.
Yang's defeat was assured, and I don't know. We just want to get into it here. Maybe we should, just because it really speaks to the magnitude of this show. That the narrator can literally spell out to us, "Hey, guess what? Young's not going to survive the next battle." That what other piece of fiction could possibly get away with its narrator literally telling its audience, "Hey, by the way, it's going to end in tragedy"?
I mean, it can only do that as it's something that's presenting itself as pseudo historical, right?
Yeah, but not even that. But that I can still be left with this deep sense of suspense,
right?
Because
how exactly does not knowing this ruin it?
Why?
It seems seems good that the FPA puts up resistance, right?
Right, my fucking surface level analysis of the situation is again, to address the first one, how does the Alliance helping out hurt Yang Wenli? Surely Yang needs every bit of help he can get. And then B, what could possibly be on the Earth Cult data disk that is so important that if Yang had read it, it would have changed the course of a battle?
Right.
What could that information have done? And I think that's interesting because it very much speaks to history. History, the grand tapestry of history itself. How many battles, how many wars, how many not even conflicts, but even just events in history have radically changed or not changed because of specific decisions, specific actions.
Right.
Here's a great example of one is I feel bad. I didn't actually originally intend to go into this historical tangent, so
okay.
Apologies. I do not remember the exact battle, but there is a battle during the Civil War in which a Confederate General Robert E. Lee sends out a scout to deliver military plans to another general, somewhere else on a different front of the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
By sheer chance, by sheer chance, so the scout has this written missive, basically, right? And he hides it in his boot.
Okay.
And by sheer chance, gets caught by a Union scout force. And by sheer chance, they check his boots and find the plan. And Tragically, the rest of the story is not as interesting because, unfortunately, the general in charge of the Union forces at the time thought that this was actually a Zhuge Liang-esque double cross
Oh
plan, and
dear.
that they assumed that, oh, actually, no, this scout got caught on purpose to trick me. I'm going to not follow what it says on that piece of paper. So, unfortunately, the plan did not go quite as well. But the idea is just like.
Right. I mean, it's like what we talked about when Yang caught Iserlohn for the first time, and it seemed great that there were no casualties, and he recaptured Iserlohn, but that led to all that other shit.
Yes, yes, and I guess my point of this tangent was just like history is weird, and history is because history is the story of mankind. It is.
Billions of
Unpredictable.
people doing billions of things.
Yeah, like it's very much a thing of like, of course, hindsight is 2020. Of course, we're all begging Yang Wenli to read the data disk, but then also we kind of get into this kind of leads into a second part of this conversation, which is that in many ways, how come this situation happened? Also because of Julian. Like in some ways, like in some indirect way, how much of this is also Julian's fault?
Right.
Because Julian explicitly does not read the data, the content of the data disk,
in this
that issue
conversation with Boris Konev trying to get Phezzan support. Konev brings up basically that Julian's great, but also he is way too trusting of just Yang Wenli.
Yes, or not even just too trusting, but too loyal.
Right.
And he holds too much stock in Yang Wenli. I mean, I think this is because everybody holds too much stock in Yang Wenli. I think anybody who serves under Yang is like, well, why would I do that? Like, Yang would take care of that. Like, Yang would be the better man for the job,
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is that Julian will never surpass Yang as long as he as long as he decides that being subordinate to him is the best situation for him. Think about what Julian thinks to himself when he reunites with Yang. He's like, "This is where I belong."
Yeah, right.
And I think what he's saying more is below Yang Wenli, serving Yang Wenli, this is where I belong. And say what you will about the structures of power, but a man who thinks like that cannot rise to the occasion in a way that someone like Yang or Reinhard can. And Boris specifically mentions, did you know that Julian didn't even look at the data on that disk? He's waiting until you read it and for you to tell him what to do with that data.
Right.
And I'm not going to say...
Basically, he brings up also because it was briefly lost. It's like, well, if Julian had read the data, he would have had that information even... it would have been extra insurance.
Yeah, and it kind of speaks... And I don't think what we're trying to say here is, Julian is going to indirectly cause Yang's death. But I think what we're saying is that, how would things have changed if not only did Julian report back, hey, I got this data from the disk, but also here is what's on
let me give you the gist.
Because, here's the thing, right? Yang Wenli is great, blah, 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 but, Yang Wenli's not omnipotent.
Yeah.
If he doesn't know what's on that disk might not even be that important. And there's probably an aspect of Yang in his brain because how Yang prioritizes things. The disk is not a priority because as far as he knows, the disk could either be something really important, unlikely, or that disk is just garbage data, right? It's just a collection of reports on the Earth cult, whatever.
Right.
If Julian had checked that data, then Julian could vet that data for Yang. And then Julian can tell Yang whether that data is important or not worth his time. Except now in this situation, it's up to Yang to decide if that data is worth his time. And I think in a weird ways, maybe this moment more than any other explicitly communicates the difference. I think the parallel here between Julian and Hilda.
Okay,
Hilda, the reason why Hilda is such a great subordinate to Reinhard is not only because she's very smart and capable.
She's got initiative.
She has initiative. Think about the Battle of Vermilion. Think about her bringing up stuff like people invoking Reinhard's name as a political tool. I love Julian. I don't think Julian would be capable of doing those kinds of things because that's not who he is.
Yeah.
He is too loyal. Or not even too loyal, because that's the thing. I think Hilda is equally loyal, but she is willing to act against her master's interests in the name of a greater good.
Yeah.
Like Hilda's Hilda's goal is I think Hilda's goal is supporting Reinhard in the name of the greater good. I think the problem with Julian is Julian's goal is just the support of Yang.
Yeah.
Like, not necessarily Yang in the name of a greater good. Because if Julian was supporting Yang in the name of a greater, higher goal, that is a Julian that would be motivated to check the data disk for anything that could help Yang Wenli. And at the same time, like, as much as I'm talking about, like, oh, these mistakes and flaws, you know, again, I don't think these actions are irrational or unbelievable. I think they fall entirely within the limits of, like, who these characters are and what they would do. Like,
yeah.
And I'm kind of glad they brought it up because, like, I think you and I think, you know, we love Julian. He's our precious boy.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
we love him. You know? Like, he can do no wrong. He drop kicks guys.
Yep.
Like, we love that boy. But
I cannot deny what Konev is saying. Like,
yeah, I think what Legend of the Galactic Heroes has done is remind us even Julian is flawed. Like,
yeah.
we were all joking about how Julian is going to be, like, we joked about how Reinhard is the person everybody thinks is perfect, but Julian is the one who's actually perfect. But, like, this conversation has completely recontextualized my understanding of Julian as a character. It's tragic, but now I don't really see Julian as, like, this promising protege to Yang Wenli. Now he's almost been recontextualized as, like, I don't know, a loyal pet, you know? Like, because I like Julian, I do, but, like, he doesn't have initiative. He doesn't.
Right. Well,
like, he doesn't really do things unless, you know, they're for, like, Yang. And
that is why, and then the immediately following scene where Shenkop comes to Yang is like, are you sure you want to let Julian go, like, be part of the squad to retake Iserlohn? Like, and like, what's your opinion on this? And Yang's like, yeah, let him go because Konev was right. I can't just keep him around all the time. Like, he needs to go on his own.
Yeah,
I think that is the final. Is that the final piece of Julian that needs to be there? Is that the skill that unlocks all the other skills?
Right. I would say, is this how Julian evolves into Mega Julian?
Right. He needs to have the. It only works if he has the ability mutinous spirit.
Yes. I guess we should mention that the way they frame this all is not just that Julian needs more initiative. Julian needs a mutinous spirit. You know, like, and I think that's fitting because, like, if you look at Yang Wenli, how come Yang Wenli rose as high as he did? I think in many ways Yang has a very strong mutinous spirit. You know, and I think Julian will. And I think a mutinous spirit is not something you can be taught, you know, and it's not something you can teach a protege. I think that is something that Julian will have to learn on his own, and
yeah,
perhaps we will see if Iserlohn, if retaking Iserlohn is the catalyst for that. We're getting close to the end of this episode here, so I wanna turn back just slightly, just a little bit. Because there is one other thing that Konev asks Yang during that discussion.
Mm.
And I think in many ways Konev is echoing some of what Shenkop did a while back, where Konev is asking Yang, like...
That's right.
Do you think it will be a good thing if Reinhard is destroyed? Will that benefit the galaxy?
So is there any guarantee that the galaxy will be a better place if you kill him? And Yang just says, no, there's no guarantee.
There is no guarantee. And then is there a guarantee that reviving democracy will be a good thing? Like, will reviving the FPA, a government that has shown time and time again it does not deserve the second, third, fourth, fifth chances it has gotten, is it worth saving that government? And Yang believes yes. Like, you're right. It might not be worth it. The FPA might go on to commit the same mistakes it has committed every time.
And we might even just lose and fall to the Empire.
yes, but that fight is still worth it because democracy. And we keep saying democracy, but I think what we're truly speaking to is the right of agency of all people is worth it. It is a Yang believes it is a fundamental human right worth striving for. That perhaps in a way is even more than the food and the comfort and the safety that something like the Empire can provide. The freedom to choose your own the freedom to possess your own self agency and decide your own fate is is the most important thing the universe has ever given mankind. And it's like what Bucock said. Say what you want about Yang Wen Li. Call him a magician. Call him a miracle. Call him a source of disease. That man of uncommon talent.
A trickster.
Say whatever you will. The trickster. Say whatever you will about him. He truly believes in what he's fighting for.
Yeah.
And
yep.
It will destroy him.
It totally will.
But so yes, to go back to the Shenkop thing. Meanwhile, so Shenkop circles Julian for the Iserlohn mission, but interestingly,
all right,
decides not to bring Karin.
Yep. Like get this whole scene of Dusty like spilling the beans, saying your daughter's in the squad, by the way. And I guess Shenkop already noticed because he checks the staff listing, and he's already crossed her name out.
Yes. Kind of just one of those things where I suppose like even a deadbeat dad has to do something nice for their illegitimate kids every now and then.
I guess so. Yep.
Yeah.
And so
meanwhile,
they launch to go take Iserlohn, and because of politics, Young is not allowed to lead the fleet. He has to stay on Facil, and Merkatz has to do it instead.
Yes. Thank you for bringing up this. One last thing, is that Facil doesn't want Young on this mission because
then it's hard for them to control him.
Right, which reminds me, good to know that Facil has also inherited the FPA spirit of deeply distrusting Yang Wen Li. So, which, it's like, I'm not going to get into it here. This is a tangent best saved for perhaps another day or perhaps another podcast, but I understand where it comes from because there has always been a tension between democratic nations and their military.
Right.
Because the military is an inherently authoritarian institution.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It leads from the top down. Absolutely. There is no democracy in the military. You follow, you follow your sergeant. He follows his lieutenant. The lieutenant follows the general, like all the way up to the top. Like, the difference in democracies is that at the very top general
is the people, ideally.
Well, it is the people.
Yes, but usually, you know what I mean.
More tangibly, it is the president.
You know what I mean.
Yeah. And the president, it is, ostensibly meant to represent the people. And there's always an undeniable... this is thankfully less common now in the 21st century as democracy has kind of become... It's still undeniably flawed, more widespread, but there was this undeniable tension in the 1800s and 1900s. The biggest fear of democracy was a government that did not have what was a military that was explicitly separated from its civic government because and was subordinate to its civic government. Because back in the day, right, like I'm not to say people back then were simpler, but in older time periods, what was the most tangible expression of political willpower? Force, military. How do you enforce the autonomy of your nation? Military force. How do you enforce the borders of your nation? Military force. So in many ways, up until very recently, government and military were one and the same, because what you needed was authority. And the separation of those as separate entities, with the military being subordinate to the other, is a fairly new phenomena. And as we unfortunately have seen in many less developed nations, that when the military decides that it is no longer interested in upholding the civic government's rule, it has often taken the tact of, well, you have a treaty, you have a constitution, that's a piece of paper. I have a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been taken to its logical conclusion, and so I am often sympathetic to a democratic government's fears of a military that has grown too powerful, but because men like Bucock are one in a million, right? Men
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Bucock explicitly say that they accept and believe that it is the military's job to be subordinate to the government.
Yeah.
Those guys are rare. Most guys in the military are, shall we say, a fair bit more pragmatic than that. And their subordination to the civic government is more a relationship of convenience than constitution. And so I've always understood that fear. That fear being aimed at Yang Wen Li, however, continues to frustrate the hell out of me.
Yeah.
But
And well, Bucock's final squad, they all sortie. They launch off Heinesen, and
yes.
narrator straight up says that the Alliance Space Fleet has made its final sortie.
Yes, the final ride of the Free Planets Alliance.
Yeah, back when we see the some old ships, some old people, the Rio Grande, and Commander Emerson, who I think is the dude that was Yong's boss in episode 1.
Was that him?
I think so.
No, I think that was Paeta. Remember?
Oh god, there's so many dudes.
Because I remember Yang gives the speech that Admiral Paeta is injured. I have taken over command. Follow my orders if you wish to live.
Sure.
I think. Are we talking about the very first fight, the very first episode stuff?
I don't know, dude. Maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking. Yeah, I'm probably thinking of someone completely different.
I guess I don't think I recognize that name, but I might be wrong.
It's the Rio Grande.
Yes, the Rio Grande. But yeah, and with that, we kind of close the curtains on episode 69 of Legend of Galactic Heroes, and this podcast.
Heavy.
It's a lot. This was a lot. A lot happened in this trio of episodes.
Yeah, I guess we're probably due for some space battles in the next trio.
Yeah. I think if we want to get into baseless speculation, I think we're probably going to get some fighting soon. I think we're going to see the taking of Iserlohn. My greatest hope is we finally get to see what is the present that Yang left for Iserlohn.
Indeed,
the thing that Yang left there that would make taking Iserlohn back easier in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very curious what that is. I'm very curious what a plan to retake Iserlohn looks like without Yang being there on the premises. Or wait, no. Isn't Yang going, but Dusty's the one staying behind?
Oh, Yang is staying. Merkatz is going. There was a scene earlier about how he wanted
right.
Go, but Dusty should stay behind. But
yes, but then Dusty is also staying behind, right? Yes. Okay. So it's just Merkatz, huh? That takes an
going to. I mean,
yes, but that takes an interesting tact then, because Merkatz is good, but here's my fear. At this point, at episode 69 of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, Merkatz is expendable.
Yeah.
I now wonder in fear if this is Merkatz's final gift to Yang Wen Li, is Iserlohn Fortress.
It's entirely possible.
Shenkop, I go both ways on Shenkop. I think that Shenkop potentially sparing Karin's life could be grounds for this is time for Shenkop to eat it. Like, I think it would be very poetic in the way Legend of the Galactic Heroes is for Shenkop to never actually meet his daughter. Like, but for his final act to have indirectly saved her life, as Shenkop, does something to give his life to, to take Iserlohn.
Sure.
But then Julian is here as well. So, like, this operation can't go completely tits up, Like, it can't be a catastrophic failure because Julian somehow needs to get out of this in one piece. Like, say what you will. Again, I'll happily eat crow, but, like, I think Julian's going to be fine. Like, if anybody survives the entirety of this show, like, it's probably Julian.
Yep.
And so Julian can't die, like, taking Iserlohn. So whatever happens at Iserlohn has to be catastrophic enough that, like, we lose some important characters, but not so horrible that, like, it's not unbelievable for Julian to survive the entire situation. God, is Mashengo going?
I don't remember.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I think he is going, yeah.
Oh, no. What if Mashengo's probably expendable at this point, huh?
Okay, the Rio Grande was it's just Bucock's old flagship. That's why.
Okay, I thought so. Okay, I was going to say, I don't think the Rio Grande was Jan's ship in episode 1.
You're right.
I don't remember what it was called. It wasn't the Hyperion. It was...
It might have been... I don't know.
Was it the
Hyperion? It was so long ago.
Sorry to all our listeners. It is probably not very fun to listen to us poorly remember events that happened months ago, both in real time and in showtime. But
all right, well, I'm excited to get back into it.
Yes, we are definitely excited to see where things go. Hopefully it's exciting. Hopefully it's fun. Hopefully not too many of our beloved characters eat it in the next 3 episodes. But the way this show's going, no guarantees. And I think that's gonna make that a podcast.
Yeah.
So let's just take care of the housekeeping. As always, you can listen to this podcast and read the rest of our content on theglorioblog.com. You can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. You can also listen to the podcast at Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, everywhere that mostly everywhere these days that podcasts are aggregated and distributed. You can also listen to the podcast on YouTube. Look up, I don't know, the GLORIO blog YouTube. We don't have a URL yet, and maybe we might one day. If maybe say, look, I've seen that number is not going up, so I've accepted it. But I still have to try. Leave a review. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. We would really appreciate it.
Listen to our sister podcasts, the GLORIO Chat, which is about more general anime news and currently airing shows, as well as Neon Genesis Evanglorio. Pilgrimage to Mecca presents Neon Genesis Evanglorio.
Yes,
which where we drag G kicking and screaming through Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Oh, I wouldn't say it's so much kicking and screaming as more me pedantically pontificating that I am reclaiming Ava for the mecha fans. I am taking it back.
Sure, dude. And
we are reappropriating it after we are taking it back from the fake mecha fans.
And and our newest member of the GLORIO Network, GLORIO's King of the Kaiju, where Chris and Collins talk about kaiju movies. The first episode is about Gamera, the giant monster. So go check that out too.
But I think with all of that said, I think that's gonna be a podcast. So as always, thank you all for listening. Iro, as always, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And I believe with all that said, we will see you all next time amongst the Sea of Stars. Hi there. I'd like to make a brief correction because I usually hold myself to a higher standard than this when it comes to my long-winded historical tangents. Earlier in the podcast, I mentioned a story about Union soldiers uncovering Confederate military plans. However, I accidentally mixed up multiple apocryphal stories about the events, creating a bizarre hybrid of the events that occurred there. What I meant to speak of was when Union scouts unwittingly found a piece of paper detailing Robert E. Lee's military plans at an abandoned Confederate campsite. There was no Confederate scout and no boots. I apologize for the faulty information there.